Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I thought I would take a look at starting out with Linux and some tips on where to begin. And I think this might surprise you right after this. And welcome back. So, what do you do if you're in a different environment? Maybe you're on a different version of Linux, and maybe you're having problems with it. Maybe you're over on BSD. Maybe you're on a Mac. Maybe you're on Windows, and you're interested in Linux, and you're trying to figure out, where do I begin? So hopefully this will give you a start. This is not a complete guide. This won't fit every possible instance, but hopefully it'll give you some tips and direction on how to begin and where to start. So where do you start? So we're going to start with some steps. And the first thing is you need to have a goal. If you don't know where it is you're going to go, what you're trying to achieve, or where to go, how do you know how to get there? And do you know if you've achieved it? So you really need to look first at what are you doing with your computer? How do you use it? I mean, that will translate into what is it you want this particular Linux distro to do for you? Are you a new Linux user and you're just trying to learn something new about Linux and maybe kick the tires a little bit and just kind of try it out and maybe learn a few things about it? Are you a developer and you need complete developer tools for the cloud or AI? Maybe you're looking into containers. Maybe you're looking into system admin jobs. Whatever that might be. What is your goal here? Are you a video producer? Are you producing content? What kind of content? Is it static? Are you uploading videos? Are you streaming videos? Where are you streaming them? Twitch, YouTube, somewhere else? And then are you going to be editing videos? And if you are, what kind of editing software do you use right now? How do you do it? And what kinds of codecs or what kinds of plugins, what kinds of things do you need to have in that toolbox in order for you to be successful in that particular task? Audio software. Do you need to be able to produce live audio? That's different than recorded audio, and it's quite different, in fact. The needs for live audio are there, although the basics are the same, they do not follow the same paths. Video switching and let me explain why. Mainly it has to do with latency. When you're in a live environment, latency is everything. When you're in a recorded environment, latency doesn't matter too much. If you're trying to hear something that is going on in real time through your audio processor and what you're using it for is causing latency, that will throw you off. So in a live environment, it's quite different. So do you need to have multiple input sources for your video? Do you have a camera? Maybe you have a laptop that you're trying to draw the video output from. Maybe you have some other device that you're trying to use. And do you need to be able to switch between those smoothly during the course of your video? The other thing is, do I need capture support? I mean, do I need to be able to bring in input sources from cameras or other devices? Or do I need to send output to another video device? Maybe I have a streaming device that I want to push this to, or maybe another computer. Or maybe I'm using one of the network options to move video around. Whatever that might be, what is it that you're going to need to do that? Are you a gamer? Are you trying to get the fastest possible gaming experience on what? A $1,500 computer? Maybe it's a $500 computer. $2,000, $5,000. What's your budget here? And what type of machine, additional accessories do you need in order to get the experience that you desire with that? Or conversely, are you into 3D modeling? Maybe it's high performance graphics that you're looking for. Maybe you're looking to offload artificial intelligence computations, or maybe you're in a near high performance environment, a high performance computing environment where you are actually using the graphics cards to do computations or vector arithmetic. Are you a web user and all you want is an inexpensive laptop that can travel around with you but be rugged enough to be carried around, provide battery life of, say, I don't know, 10 hours or something like that a day, but yet be small enough to be used in an economy class airplane? So, yeah, those are some of the things that, I mean, these are not all the goals. I'm just giving you some examples of things you need to think about. Because, like I said, if you don't know where you're going, you will never be successful with anything. Windows, Mac OS, Linux, you will never be successful with it. So, step 2. What hardware do I want to be able to use Linux on? And this is really a big question, bigger than you might think. Is this an old PC? Maybe it's an old Mac. Maybe it's a rack mount server that someone gave you and you want to be able to put Linux on it. So you need to evaluate how you want that and what type of hardware you're going to use, because that matters. Is this a new machine? How new? How new is that machine? Does it need? And what you're looking for there is you're looking for Linux contains the device drivers that your hardware needs in order to be able to run. If you don't have the device driver support in your particular version of the Linux kernel on a distribution you've chosen, then your machine is not going to work properly. Not all of the functions of your machine will be available to you. And I'm afraid you would have a very unhappy experience in all likelihood. In Windows, it's a little different because Windows doesn't supply the device drivers. You download those from the vendor that developed the hardware that you want to install on the machine. So it is quite different. So you need to be aware of that. Also, do you need a video graphics card? Whose? What kind? Is it a gamer class? Is it a professional class? Are you doing modeling? Are you just doing gaming? And maybe you need a video card that supports rendering, offloading of the rendering, because that does add additional speed to the ability to render out videos, which means that you've applied a bunch of plugins, you've done some effects, you've done some transitions, you've done some cuts, that kind of thing, and you want to be able to render out a new video. So time is money, right? What kind of videos are you producing? What format? Is it MP4? Is it some other format? What quality? Is it HD? Is it 4K, 8K? And what codecs will you be using to store that? Because codecs determine the compression level of the video and the amount of storage that a completed video takes on your hard drive. And that, of course, will determine the amount of storage that your machine is going to have to support. And those are factors in the hardware that you choose. So the other one's what kind of a CPU are you looking for? Is it an Intel? Is it an AMD? Doesn't really matter as much, but there are differences in the Linux kernels on what versions of those processors are supported. So just be aware of that. So you'll have to do some research. You'll have to talk to some people that are using hardware that's similar to what you are interested in buying if it's new. Or if it's something you already have that's fairly new. Are you looking to use ARM? Are you looking to use RISC-V? What is it that you're trying to run this on? Because those all play into what distributions are going to be available to you that will support the hardware architectures that your machine has. How long? The other big factor is how long has the CPU been offered commercially? If it's only 2 weeks, chances are there's not going to be a Linux kernel to support you. If it is something that's been out for, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 8 months, good chance that there might be a Linux kernel that will support that. It may not support it 100%, but that's the nature of software. It's build out a basic set of capabilities and then refine to make it better. That is the way things work. Do I have wireless needs? Do I have Bluetooth needs? Or is it just going to be a wired network connection? Are the type of devices that are in that machine? I know these are things you don't have to worry about with Windows so much because, again, your device drivers are coming from the manufacturers. But in Linux, it is important that you know the type of hardware that your particular device is using because those device drivers are built into the kernel. What motherboard are you using? Again, same issue. The motherboard has drivers that are needed in the kernel in order to support the functionality of the motherboard that you want to use. So is this a pre-built machine? Is this a custom built? Realize that if your first foray into Linux is a custom built, you're probably going to be a longer lead up time in getting your machine running because you have to assemble all the parts of a custom to fit the particular piece of hardware that you're running. Now, in a pre-built situation, there are a number of Linux solutions that you could go to if you just wanted to bypass all that nonsense and just start there. But again, make sure that those machines meet the goals that you're set for yourself. That's all I'm saying. So, and do you have other specialized support? Maybe you have Thunderbolt devices. What level? What version? Is it 2? Is it 3? What is it? You might have storage capacity issues that you want to be able to meet. You have a RAID, or maybe you're attaching it to a SAN. But those would be more corporate types of things. RAID could be a good chance you'd be using a RAID at home, or maybe a form of ZFS. Step 3. What OS are you coming from? Are you coming from Mac? What version? Or excuse me, if you're coming from Windows, what version is it? 7, 8, 10, 10X? Which version is it? Because those user experiences, if you want to maintain what you've, at least in some basic form, what you're used to using on Windows, then again, this is important things that will be used to decide not only which distribution you use, but also which graphical user interface you choose for Linux. Are you coming from Mac? Same thing. Of course, the Mac user interface hasn't changed appreciably in quite some time now. Yeah, they've added a bunch of features, but sure. And that's typical. But are there are basic things of the Mac OS and the way it works and the way its GUI works that you might find irritating if you don't find those things in Linux. And chances are you probably won't find all of those things in Linux. Is this another Linux workstation that you've had up and running and maybe you've encountered some issues or some productivity problems with it, and you're just interested in looking at expanding and maybe trying to find something better? What graphical environment are you comfortable with? That's important too. Is the factor here speed? Is it raw performance, or is portability a factor? In other words, I want my Linux to be able to, I can close the lid, I can put it to sleep, or I can let the monitors time out and go to sleep, or I can put the machine in hibernate, which takes very little power, and take it through the airport and put it on the plane and fly for 14 hours, open up the machine, and have enough battery life to be able to send some kind of message home. Is this machine dual purpose? Is it a stay-at-home box, or is it a take-it-to-work box? Is it both? Are you doing dual purpose with it? And that's going to be important if you have to protect files for your business that you don't want to expose to your home network. So, step 4. I would take advice from other people with a big grain of salt because they don't know what you're trying to do. And of course, everybody always has an answer. I mean, that's a fatal flaw in all of us. Oh, just use this. Just use this distro because it's the best. Just ignore that because chances are it might be best for them, but it probably won't be best for you. I used to use Windows, but now I use distro Y because it was the best replacement. Don't listen to that either because, again, you don't know what they were using their distribution for, and you don't know how they were using Windows previously either. What matters is what's right for you. My favorite, distro Z sucks. That tells me nothing. I have no idea what that means, other than the fact that someone was unhappy with some kind of issue in that particular distro, and it didn't meet their needs. Now, saying it sucks doesn't really help much. So don't bother with that one either. Instead, ask the Linux community members that are doing similar things to what you want to do. Talk to the people that are, if you're building artificial intelligence applications, if you're doing video generation, talk to other people in the Linux community that are using Linux machines to do something similar to what you are. If they're close enough to what your needs are, yeah, you're going to be adapting some because none of us do exactly the same thing. But, you can evaluate how closely they match what you're trying to do. And maybe if you get real lucky, it's exactly what you're trying to do. And you'll have a blueprint you can follow to build out a system that'll work for you. But chances are you're probably going to have to tweak it and build up a set of custom applications and configurations that are going to work. Yeah, it's work, and that I'm not going to hide that from you. I mean, any system takes configuration. I don't care if it's Windows or Mac. I don't care what it is. Every system requires configuration. Every machine takes applications to make it do what you need it to do. And the other most important one is, and this isn't always something that you should use. Again, use this as a grain of salt, because software bugs appear, they get fixed over time, and so the problems that someone encountered with a particular distro may no longer be true. But it might be interesting to find out what kind of problems did they run into. Oh, I bought this motherboard from this company, and I had a problem getting the Wi-Fi to be recognized by the system. Now, remember, that could be an old version of the kernel. Maybe that Wi-Fi driver wasn't available, or maybe that particular motherboard just does not support Linux, and there are a number of them that do not. So that's what you're really trying to find out. You're trying to avoid having major problems and then find out you spent, $1,500 on a new system that you can't use other than the way you were using it. So, and then how did they go about working through them, or did they work through them, and how did they fix it? Those are always valuable things that you can gain from others in the community. Step 5, download a test distro that the people that you have talked to are using, and maybe it's close enough to what you want to do, but you're interested enough to give it a try. I mean, you want to go kick the tires on it. And remember, you want to put this on a VM first, because you don't want to just throw something away on your hard drive that you're using day to day, because we don't want to interrupt that yet. What we're trying to find out, and you can put this VM up under Windows or up under a Mac, that's fine, so you don't have to destroy your work environment. So the other thing is, you'll use this test distribution as a test platform. So don't put any real work on here, because you're going to end up throwing this away. But what we do want you to do is to log everything that you do. Write it down in a journal. I installed this package. I made this configuration change to this file, or whatever it is that you did. I added this user. But make sure that you at least have some record that you can go back to and recreate the system. Now, you can always take a backup of this and then reinstall the backup on the new system, yeah. But you'll want to know in general, if you're putting this on a system that maybe isn't quite like the one you did, you'll at least have a general idea of what packages you're going to need in order to recreate an environment that you like to work in. So you're trying to get a list of utilities and evaluate the tools that you want to use and see how well they work for you. Long ago, people would say, just change the way that you work to do this. I've heard that so many times. Just do it the way the software wants to do it. No, that's not, no, that's not going to help you, because chances are that will make you more inefficient. And so that's not our goal here. We're not trying to make things slower for you. But the other thing is, if you encounter something like this, where you have something that you're struggling with, see if there's a plugin that's available for that particular software package that adds the functionality that corrects whatever deficiency in the software that there is there. And if it's really bad, then maybe you might want to go, check out another application-based that does something similar to what you're trying to do, and see if that is a better fit. But that, this is all the process of evaluation, and that's what step 5 is all about. How well does this really meet my goal, right? I mean, that's what you're trying to determine here. So if you think that this is the right answer and you're pretty satisfied with step 5, move on to step 6. And you think that this particular set of utilities and distro and the way it's laid out, the way it works is pretty good for the way you're trying to conduct whatever business that you're trying to do. So the next step would be to build an image from the installer image or from a live CD, and put it on a USB stick or a DVD or a removable SSD, anything that'll allow you to transfer that image and install it on a piece of hardware. Now, if it's an older piece of hardware that already has an operating system on it, you can install them side by side, but just remember, at some point, you'll probably want to obliterate the other system that you're coming from. But right now, ideally, that you'd want to put these side by side if you don't have the budget to run them together. Now, if it's new hardware, you've got an old machine. So leave your old machine alone and go put it on the new machine. So test as much of the components as you can after the initial live install. Does your wireless work? Does your Bluetooth work? Does your network work? Do you have sound? Sorry about that. Do you have video? Is your video card working? If you have any add-on cards, check those out. See if the drivers are already installed. If they're not, then go get the Linux drivers and install them. And there are some cards that require their own driver. If you have a printer, when you attach it to your computer, does it see it? And if it sees it, can I install it? Can I take it and make it my default printer? And then can I print to it? And does it work? And test it in a word processing or a graphics package, something that will show the switch of being able to print everything you want it to print. This is a good time also to install your backup software, because you'll want to do this first. Get your backup set up, get your backup software set up, and do your first backup of the machine as a placeholder for where you've been. And remember that as you make changes over time, you'll want to keep doing incremental backups or full backups, whichever you prefer, in order to have a reference point of where to go back, because you don't want to start back at square one. Update the packages to the latest version. Now, these would be the base installed packages that came with your installed image. And so you would then make sure those are up to date before you complete. And the reason why you want to do that is that also updates and refreshes the libraries for the other packages that you're about to download and install that are the ones you need in order to meet your goal. And take your step 5 notes at this point and then retrace them as best you can to create a system that you are familiar with on your virtual machine. If you have a backup image of your step 5, then restore it to your step 6 hardware. And if all goes well, you can then take your system to the next step, which is a parallel test. Don't throw away your old machine just yet and say, oh, I'm good to go, everything's fine. No, don't do that. Don't do that. So step 7 is, whenever you do something keep doing your work on your old computer, and every time you do something on your old computer, whether you're editing a video, maybe you're creating a graphics image, or maybe you're publishing something, go repeat that same step on the new. I know this is going to take longer, but what you're trying to do is to evaluate, can this new setup work like what I'm used to? Can it do all the same functions? And so if you do a backup on your old computer, do a backup on your new computer. But I wouldn't follow necessarily that model. I would back up periodically, whatever that time frame is. So that choice is dependent upon what's it worth to you to lose. So if you can't lose an hour's worth of work, then back up every hour, or back up every 30 minutes, so whatever that time frame works for you. If you can afford to lose a day's work, great, then back up once a day. But evaluate as you're working through the two and you're doing your comparison. So what I'm talking about is when you do the work on the old, go immediately and do it on the new, and evaluate how long it's taking you to do it on one platform versus the other, because that's really pointing to efficiency, and you want to maintain at least the efficiency that you had, and hopefully maybe your efficiency is increasing, because the whole purpose of computers is to save you time, right? That it's not supposed to make your life miserable and create additional work for you. That's not the goal of them, and that's not one that we want to follow. So step 8, you're almost there. You can start to enjoy your new environment. I would not transition and just cut off your old environment. I would slowly move things over. And if you can come up with groups of things that you're doing that you can move one at a time over, then do that. Because what you're really trying to evaluate here is, as I bring more and more of these pieces over and start doing them in sequence, your performance might change on the machine from when you were doing it parallel. So you're trying to find out what's going to slow me down, what's not going to affect the machine performance that much. try to push it a little bit. And by what I mean by this is explore some of the things that Linux does that your old computer doesn't do, because a lot of times that adds to your ability to do things quicker. Again, that's the whole purpose behind computers, and that's what we're trying to do with them. So, most importantly, did you achieve your goal? Did you get what you wanted out of the machine? No? What's missing? What did it miss? And then maybe you want to go back and talk to your community members again and say, hey, I did these things. Everything's great except for this. This I'm not too happy with. It's not working as well as I can. Did you have this problem, and what did you do? Because, we're all in this together, and everybody, for the most part, helps each other in this community, and that's kind of what it's all about, right? So, summary. Without a goal, you won't know where you are. You won't know what you were trying to accomplish. You won't know where you ended up. And all will happen is you'll go try some distro that somebody recommended that might have been great for them, but not so good for you, and you won't be happy. So have a goal. What are you trying to do? Keep a good record of what you did to assemble the system when you were working on the virtual environment. Try out that system in a VM, kick the tires, see if it's really going to be right for you. And that can be done, again, on your existing machine. You don't have to go out and buy new hardware. You don't have to do anything other than just install a virtual machine and start trying to set it up. Now, you're not trying to compare yet between where you were and where you are. You're not trying to compare your Windows environment or Mac environment to Linux at this point. You're just trying to see will this particular tool work well enough to replace the one I'm doing it on, right? That's what you're trying to find out. Put it on real hardware when you're ready. Do a parallel run. Don't throw away your old one. So make sure you're doing work on both. Doing it on the old and on the new. Make sure you're doing a backup, just like you would, and start out with the backup. And then evaluate it once you're all happy and you think this is great. I mean, it's working for you. Evaluate it. Did it meet all the things that you wanted it to do? And if it didn't, go back and talk to some of the community members and see where your gaps are. So that's basically my approach to things. You really do need to know where you are and where you want to go before you can start. You can't just take some blind Linux distribution recommendation and start running down the hill with it. I mean, you won't know if it's going to work for you and your environment on your hardware. And there are times where Linux does not work on particular sets of hardware, and that's important that you find that out before you go out and spend real money on that hardware to see if it works. To make sure that that particular distro is working for you first. Let's see. Other than that, that's the only thing I had today. I want to do my Linux Mint Debian edition, but I have some other things I want to do first. But the reason why I wanted to do this video today was very simple. There's a lot of advice that's going around, and a lot of people are just saying, here, just use this, just do that, use this GUI, use that GUI, just put this configuration shit. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Find something that's close to what you need first. That's been all my advice. And talk to other people in the community that are doing things like you want to do. That's the most important. I mean, you could go talk to a developer, but if you're trying to play computer games, what they're doing isn't going to help you, because their systems are set up totally different than it would be for a real-time game. Hope this helped you today. If it did, please like and subscribe. As always, hope to see you again real soon, and bye for now.